Get your tickets now for the 23rd annual edition of the OUTshine LGBTQ plus Film Festival, happening April 23rd to May 2nd. Don't miss our incredible grand opening drive-in event, followed by 10 days of non-stop films from here and all around the world that you can watch at home. Watch trailers and get your tickets at OUTshineFilm.com now. Hello, everybody. It's my sincerest pleasure to introduce the cast and crew from a movie that I just fell in love with, Potato Dreams. They're going to be on in 1 second. Of course, this is our 23rd annual Miami edition of the OUTshine Film Festival, and we are so excited. It's a drive-in and at-home event, both, and here they are. Here is the cast and crew, and I urge all of you to stay with us so you can meet every single one of them. First, it's director Wes Hurley, producer Mischa, and I want to get this right, Jakupcak. Oh my God, I hope I did get that right. Actor Sera Barbieri, and we're streaming this information. Vic, if you could just throw up the last ones, and then I can get that. Actor, we can't forget actor Tyler Bocock. Actor Sera Barbieri. I think we've got everybody in the room. Sorry, guys, if I screwed that up a little bit. How are you?
Hi.
Hi. Thanks for having us.
Oh, we're really excited. I have to tell you now, sometimes I say to people when I'm doing a Q&A, I say, boy, I really loved your movie, and I don't really mean it. But I'm going to say to you guys that I really loved your movie. I watched it again the second time, and I actually liked it more the second time than I did the first time. And so you don't get to say that often. You know, I'm going to start with you, Wes. For me, it reminded me a lot kind of Jojo Rabbit. Have you heard that before from people?
Oh, yeah. I did write it years before Jojo Rabbit. When I saw Jojo Rabbit in theater, I was like, okay, people are going to compare it to us for sure.
So let's go to the opening scene, the black and white scene, because I love the way, first of all, I love the way you filmed it, because you brought in the realism of the time and everything else. But that black and white, I think, has symbolism to Russia as color did to the US. Can you explain your use of kind of black and white and color when you were producing this, when you were thinking this out in your head?
Yeah, in this scene, we're watching black and white TV in Russia, and then something traumatic is happening in my own life, and I kind of translate it or fantasize about it being on screen, framed differently, sort of turning it into a film. So I was hoping that it would set up the film, sort of the main theme of the film, which is our relationships with movies and cinema and how they can change us and affect us, and also literally help us survive and stay sane in difficult situations.
You know, Wes, you not only filmed in black and white, but even in that scene where in the early scene where Potato is kind of with his friend and with a group of friends, and then they find the little girly picture, the little dirty girly picture, as we'll call it, because that would be kind of the vernacular that would be used back then as well. I'm old enough to know that. In that scene, I love the way you kind of pulled away and then started the gay development of the story by him saying, oh, everybody's going, oh, wow, look at how hot she is. Look, and he's going, have any of you seen Star Wars number 35? And bringing it like to current, explain to me why that was important to do it that way.
Well, I wanted to start hinting on the fact that the character is gay, but of course he can't be out back in the 80s Russia. And so how to show that. And so as the rest of the film is pretty much 99% based on my life. It's very truthful to what my life was. And so I thought, I was reminded of all the times that my friends that I grew up with would, start talking about girls. And it's not like I could come out and say I'm gay, but I definitely was I felt alienated, and I was like, why am I not into this? And why, sort of try to change the subject and get them to talk about movies and other things instead of, girls.
I can so relate to that myself from all the times that I did exactly that. The family scenes that you shot, and Mischa, I'm going to get to you in a minute because I loved you in those family shots. When you brought everybody together in the early part of the movie, talking, there was an authentic kind of reality to the quirkiness as well as the real reality of what you were trying to accomplish. Well, it was so different. How do you come up with like these different ways of presenting a concept?
I mean, part of it is being limited by our budget, and knowing when I wrote the film 8 years ago, I knew that I would never be able to make it for like millions and millions of dollars. So how do you tell this story that's set in a different era in a different country with limited resources? And so I wanted to embrace the artifice of it and this sort of theatricality. So it's almost like you're watching a play, and embracing the fact that it's a memory, it's sort of a constructed reality, as opposed to trying to sell it as a sort of a hyper realistic film, as what most films try to do.
So Mischa, let's bring you into this. Let me ask you a question. Just to follow up exactly on that particular scene, you're in the family, you're sitting with the whole family, and your kind of lines are incredible. I love the when you read this story, especially the beginning of it. What did you think? And then when you're sitting there, was it different from the original reading of the script till you got with the whole family and had to do those lines because they were so quirky? And
I love the script. I really love the script. I'm actually the producer, so I think you might be confusing me with the Mariah C. Kaminsky, who plays the mother, who's wonderful. But yeah, I first met Wes probably about 6 years ago, and I was able to read the script, and I love that scene. There's so much humor in it, and it's one of the things that's really compelling to me is the way that humor is intertwined with such dark kind of, trauma and these very serious, heavy topics. But the levity and the dark humor just, I think, really, shines through and makes it so entertaining. Wes and I first met about 6 years ago, and I read the feature script and immediately knew that I wanted to be a part of it, and I wanted to see it manifested. And so we, at that point, we hadn't raised any funds, and we were just early on in development. And we got the opportunity to make a 5-minute short VR piece, immersive version of the story. And then we also made a 12-minute short documentary. And that one went to South by in 2017, actually won the grand jury award there, and had a wonderful life in festivals around the world. And that's called Little Potato. But the dream and the vision was always to make this feature narrative version that you guys, are seeing here. And it's been a long time coming, but it definitely is one of those stories that you come upon that you really, you just need to see happen. And it's a project that I think all of us were really attracted to because it's so well written. And Wes and his mom are such compelling characters, and it is based on real life, actual events.
yeah, and I was going to ask you about exactly that, knowing it's a real life story. And by the way, Mischa, I totally knew you were the producer, and I apologize. In my mind, I got, as I always do, get very confused easily. So
no problem.
The script comes to you, and let's face it, it doesn't read like a regular script would read. It reads, it's kind of nonlinear in a way, and it's quirky and it's different. What was the first thought that you had as you're going through? And then how were your thoughts evolving as you continued reading on in the script?
Yeah, like I said, it's I've worked on like over 30 films in the feature films in the Seattle area in the Northwest. And this was all shot and filmed in and around Seattle, where Wes and his mom actually, ended up immigrating to and live. And as soon as I read the script, it was, one of those projects that I just knew that I wanted to see happen and I wanted to be involved with. It's actually one of the best scripts that I've ever read, with the potential of working on. And then, I got to know Wes, and he and his mom are every bit as sort of wonderful as the movie portrays. And it's such an unusual sort of love letter to Seattle, and it's a story of immigrants, and it's a story of coming out and coming of age, and it's really so many things wrapped up together.
So Sera and Tyler, I promise in 1 minute I'm going to get to you, but I want to ask Wes and Mischa kind of a question. Did the movie come out in the final version the way you saw it when you wrote it, and Mischa, the way you saw it when you read it? Wes, why don't you go first?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, I think with all the films that I do, again, because of limited resources, it's really important to plan, and like I plan every frame in advance how I'm going to edit it. So it turned out, almost exactly as we planned. Of course, there's some surprises the day off, and sometimes actors, surprise you with performances that you didn't even expect in a good way, where it's like, oh, okay, I didn't expect that, but that's even better than what I wanted. So there's always collaboration with everybody involved, and that adds this, again, like a good kind of surprise to production. But for the most part, it's very close to what I envisioned. Yeah.
Mischa, you were reading it, so now seeing it on screen, what do you think?
Oh, it's amazing. I'm so proud to be a part of it. One of the things that I can brag about a little bit that Wes and I did right is the casting. I mean, Sera and Tyler that we have here embody the characters in such nuanced and complex ways. We really, and the whole cast entirely, from Hirsch Powers, who plays Little Potato, to Mariah C. Kaminsky, and Leah Delaria is the grandmother of Potato, and we have Dan Laria as the stepfather that they come and meet in Seattle. And I have to say, I obviously have seen the film in various different versions as it's been going through post-production. And the final time that I saw it, on the end credits, you see the characters that are portrayed in the film against the real life people. And I started crying. I'm getting chills just talking about it now. I mean, I really seeing the different versions of Wes throughout his life, and Wes's mom, in Russia and then in America. It's so powerful. And I think it's quite a feat to do honor to actual events and actual people's lives, and I think the film, I feel really proud of it. I think it does. But I think a big key to its success is with the cast. I think we started with amazing script, and Wes is such a talented film director. But without the cast, I think that really is what makes it sing.
Well said, well said. Tyler, you had a tough act to follow in Little Potato, let's be honest. And I'm going to tell you, you stepped up and did it, because it's never easy to follow a good kid actor. It's never easy. And Little Potato was, boy, he just grabbed you from the beginning and pulled you along with him. So one, did you watch kind of his mannerisms and how he attacked the character? And did you draw from that? And then do you feel like that changed the way you saw the script when you were reading it? And let's go back before that. And I'm going to ask you to remember two things here, which is never easy. When you read the script at first, and I don't know how you and Wes met, or you and Mischa met, but when you read the script, what did you think when you read this script initially?
Yeah, so I guess starting off, following Hirsch, like an impossible feat, honestly. Like the little man is insane. I like watching it back. I like, it's amazing, like how young he is and what he's going to do in the future. It's really cool, and even I've been taking notes, honestly. And then going off of that, unfortunately, I never got to watch his performance until after mine was filmed, because we filmed in early October, and then he was a couple months later in late January. So I never got to follow off him as far as production goes. But yeah, and then your second question of meeting Wes, this for me just started out as another audition that I submitted virtually before all this was a thing, but we were doing the self-tape, so I'd send it in, and it was an interesting script, I remember, but I just another audition. And then by the time you forget about it, it was like 2.5 weeks later, I get a message from my agent, and she was like, they want you as a callback. And I was like, sweet, another thing to do. And you go and you get more and more bits of the script, and you start getting into it, and you're like, holy crap, this is a weird story. And then I think it was the third callback, I met with Wes in his apartment at the time, and he was telling me, like, yes, this is a true story about my life, and you can't like comprehend that much at first until you really read the full thing, and it's just like, it's just so much to fit into so little time, and what he did with it and how it's written is truly astounding, and it just, every turn and twist that you get, it's still like watching it back, I was like, man, you just can't like believe this is a real thing.
So what were you given initially to read at the first table read? Were you just or at the first audition, was it the entire script before you went in? Did you really understand your character at that point?
No, not at all. I think the first little bit I got that I submitted was, I think the compilation of the microaggressions and between his different lovers, if you call them that, through that little compilation, and I was reading that, and so I was reading that with my mom at home when we sent it in. So that also adds a fun element when you're initially looking at the script for that. And then I think I got on top of another side, which was the coming out scene between the mom, which is when I went in with Wes to his apartment to read for that and kind of get a bigger sense of the character. And then I was given the script when I was told I got the job. So then I read that through and had to process that for a little bit. But luckily we had like 6 or 7 months that I could really take and dive into it before we began the filming.
Well, so take us through that a little bit, Tyler, because I'm kind of amazed, and I know different directors approach casting in a different way. Some send the whole script and some give pieces of it. Unwrap the process for us. So here you get this little piece that you're reading, which, could have been a murder mystery for all you know, really. Unwrap the process of how this character, Potato, came to life in your mind as you continued to read, and how you reinvented him along the way.
Yeah, I think reinventing it isn't quite the word that I would use, because I was really just trying to channel Wes, because it's his story and it's him. So I met with him countless amounts of times. We probably sat down at just about every cafe there is, just talking for hours and reading through the script, and I was trying to figure out his mannerisms and how he said things and how he was feeling about each different individual like time within the film. And so it was just lots of meeting with him, because I don't want to misrepresent him, and I wasn't trying to like act a different way than he would have acted or something like that. So that was definitely a different experience for me, trying to embody someone else rather than throwing my own twist into it.
Wow, that's very interesting, because an actor has to kind of feel the character, and then when you're trying to portray a real character, often those two don't jive up. But well, all I can say, Wes, is if that's who you were, the actors did a great job. They did a great job. Sera, let's get to you, because you get this script. What were you given in the beginning? Did you follow did Wes follow the same kind of route with you?
Yeah, so it was very similar. It was just another audition that came into my inbox, and I kind of knew from the onset that it was really special, even though I just had a couple of scenes that I was recording also with my mom in like my dining room. And I didn't get the full script at first, so I just, recorded myself, sent it in, and I think almost 24 or 48 hours later, my agent emailed me and she was like, "The director thinks that you're mesmerizing." And I was like, "Oh my God, the director thinks I'm mesmerizing? Like, what?" And then of course got it in my head that like, well, that doesn't mean he's gonna want to work with me or whatever. But turns out he did, so that was really cool. And then I sort of had like a chemistry read with Hirsch, who plays Little Potato in Russia. And then from there, I booked it, I think, on like Christmas Eve or something, which made it a really special Christmas. And then we started filming a few weeks later. So yeah.
How was it playing a character? She's quite a character. I mean, she's quite a character. How was it playing a character, first of all, not current, and to both Mischa and Wes, the costumes were incredible, and the sets and the way I'm sure they were designed, to what you remember, Wes, but still you were able to replicate the time so well and put us right there. And I don't know what film you shot it on or whatever, but everything about it was great. But back to you, Sera, how was it to play a character back in those days that is so different probably than anything you've done before, so different than what you could pull from yourself? What did it take to develop that character for you?
It was fascinating because I was definitely a little freaked out. I was not alive in the 80s. I love the 80s, like from a standpoint of just, admiring it from a distance. But
come on, you only know the music of the 80s.
The music of the 80s, what my mom tells me. But yeah, it was a really, really interesting experience because like you said, I'm not a mother. I can't imagine being a mother right now. I'm not a doctor. I'm not any of these things. I've never lived in the Soviet Union. So I think that's
well, now you could say you played one on TV.
Right, exactly. But I think that's kind of the magic of acting, really. And that's why I love doing it, is because you can access so many stories and so many feelings and really just people that you never would otherwise understand, or at least be able to kind of put a mirror to, I suppose. And I put a lot of just what I was able to do in the story that Wes created, and how much he admires and loves his mother. And I just was so lucky that he trusted me to bring her to life for the first half of the movie. So, yeah.
Wes, I want to go back to black and white and color. What gave you that idea to kind of make black and white in that timeline, use black and white? Was it Russia was black and white and the United States was color? I mean, that was my interpretation.
I mean, it's literally the idea that, because we did only have black and white TVs back then. So, and it also makes it more drab and sort of depressing and fit that mood.
Russia.
Yeah. And you mentioned costumes and design, and I just want to say we had such incredible production designer, Kristen Donnelly, and costume designer Harmony Arnold, who have done so much with so little in terms of our budget, but they just did such a beautiful job. And Kristen couldn't be able to be here tonight. She was going to join us, but she's shooting another film, and she was such an amazing find for me too, because she lived in Russia for a short period of time when she was young, like as a missionary, around the same time that I lived there. So we kind of had the same language. Like I didn't have to explain to her how things were. She really understood the aesthetic of what like a poor Russian apartment would look like in the late Soviet Union, early post-Soviet Union era.
Well, Sera, I'm going to follow up with you on that. So here is this kind of black and white character, you know, in a lot of ways. Her lines are, what's the word I want to use? Out of this world. I mean, they're very different than what any mom would ever say to her kids. So when you're reading this, what did you draw on to like bring this amazing character to life? Because you really did. I'm looking at you now, and boy, I got to tell you, it's a stretch, because that is a very different character from the person that we're talking to and seeing right now. So kudos to you for an unbelievable performance. Where did you draw from to make that character come alive?
That's a very good question. Thank you, first of all. I'm really glad that that's the impression that it made. But I did a lot of research, I suppose. I read a lot of books about the Soviet Union. I read a memoir from this woman who escaped the Soviet Union and actually became a mail order bride to sort of get myself in that mindset. But the way that I looked at the relationship between Little Potato and Lena was very much like, yes, I was his mother, but also like first and foremost kind of a friend and a sister. And we were sort of puts a lot of that informs the relationship a lot, I think. And I drew from that a lot.
I just love so much. I love so much the way that it was shot. Like I say, I just kept seeing Jojo Rabbit, and I'm so happy to hear that you were before Jojo Rabbit. I just kept seeing the style of the similarities. And I was a huge fan of that film, just like I am a huge fan of your film. Tyler, let's talk about you for a minute. So you're grown up. You're kind of really introducing, even though Little Potato kind of brought gay into the picture, you are the grown up You are the grown up Potato. Take us through some of your thought processes on playing this quirky gay young kid, and what you drew on to bring him to life so wonderfully.
Yeah, I personally identify as straight, so I just collecting a lot of.
Come on, no one's going to believe that.
Well, I'm glad. But just getting a lot off of what Wes was feeling, and just constantly asking, trying to get more into his head, and just seeing, like, because it's something that personally I will never in reality feel. It's something I can't comprehend. So just trying to draw off emotions from separate sources in that sense. But really, it was a lot of inward feeling, because as I've tried to portray, and as Wes was telling me, it was very, like, just everything was just caving in, and that's what it felt like. And so I tried to just, at the beginning of every scene, I just kind of tucked myself in, and then just got in my head and was just feeling feelings. And that is something that is emphasized in the film, as well, as he sneaks out every night and goes on runs just to feel something. And so just really trying to embody that within myself was like, it was pretty draining. You get home after these like 14-hour days, and it's just like, holy man, like, this is a lot to deal with. And like dealing with that as Wes is just insane. It's just insane. So, well, but yeah, just
Sera,
really feeling it.
So it wasn't typecasting, is what you're saying? No,
I hope not.
You did bring him to life. You really did. And he Potato is a complex character. There's so much from young Potato. I'll tell you, young Potato is a complex character to be. How old was he in the kind of early stages, Wes?
He's in Russia. He's meant to be like 12 to 14.
He even looked younger, I think. How old was he
in real life?
Yeah,
Hirsch was 14.
14. So he was a little bit older. He really brought that character to life, and it's so interesting because Tyler, you look at it linear. Typically I guess there is no typical in the way you develop a film, but when you watch it, you're watching it from a linear perspective, and there was nothing. You had to build the character that was already developed from an early stage. and that had to be really tough coming in from where you came from. Did you know about Little Potato and his how much did you study his lines to be able to bring your lines to life?
I'm gonna be honest, I read it through, but I was mainly just focused on like the connection with Wes at that time, specifically, like knowing the past for sure, what has happened. So I got an understanding of what everything went through, but I never really divulged super in depth into what Hirsch had to process.
Interesting.
But that was a personal choice. That was my own acting perspective. So I don't recommend that for other people.
Wes, did Hirsch watch Tyler?
I believe Hirsch saw a couple of scenes with Tyler. Yeah, I don't remember anymore. I mean, one of the huge things for me was to really separate stylistically and in terms of everything in the film, Russia and America. And part of it is the age break, because you kind of do become a new person, right? When you're a teenager, you become a very different person than you were as an adolescent. And then the biggest thing is this idea of being an immigrant, where when you're an immigrant, it feels like you're born again. It feels like you're kind of a different person on a different planet in a way. When you're coming from culture like Russia to Seattle in the States, it's so radically different. So I wanted to sort of to jolt the audience into this feeling of with like a different cast, different visual style, different musical style. So it really feels like, okay, everything's changed the way it felt to me, emotionally coming to the States.
Yeah, I was going to say, you certainly did that. The music, that's a great find, because I found that between the music, the sets, the costume, and the acting, you really separated the Russia and the United States so brilliantly, and it comes across really beautifully in the film. Looking at your life personally, going back to that little kid in Russia, and if Potato really is that little kid in Russia, and looking at where your life is today, take us on that journey and tell us about how it feels to end up where you are right now.
I mean, it feels incredible. I think, part of the magic of the film is that it's based on a true story. And I feel like in real life, my mom and I sort of had this happy ending that we really wanted. We got to come to the country that we wanted. We got to, this country has allowed me to really follow my dreams as a filmmaker. It has allowed me to be true to myself as a gay person. So, I tried to capture the sense of wonder and gratitude and joy of realizing your dreams, starting at, it's not looking for and you're not sure it's going to actually come true, and, kind of coming full circle where you pretty much get all that you were dreaming for.
Very, very. I'm just kind of enamored. So, Mischa, actually, I have a plan for a question for both you and Wes. I saw this as more of a play than I did a movie. Not that I didn't see the movie as a movie, but I kept seeing the theatrical elements of it on stage, and I wondered if you have any plans to do any of it on stage.
That's really interesting. I mean, it's funny because it's such a compelling story that it really, I think, for those of you who ever get an opportunity to see Little Potato, the short documentary, or Potato Dreams, the short VR piece, the virtual reality piece that's immersive. I think it's interesting because it is a story that can be reinvented or retold in all these different forms. And it's interesting. I got an opportunity to produce all all three of those, the feature narrative and then the short VR and the short doc, and each one sort of shines a light on a different area. And I love the way that Wes envisioned the contrasting worlds of Russia and America. And, you know, definitely once we come to America, it is much more filmic. You know, it is more sort of realistic, and the style is more contemporary. And, you know, in Russia, it's more surreal, and it is sort of darker. And, you know, and without giving any spoilers, there's a definite reason why it's engineered that way. And you know, I think that, you know, of course it would be wonderful on stage. I could see it as a musical, you know, but it's been really fun to see this. This is sort of the, you know, as far as my involvement, how I see it, you know, this is sort of the pinnacle of how it's manifested. And it's you know, it's just so cool to see it in its form.
You use the word musical. I'm kind of, it's interesting that you picked that as a word. Do you see this as a musical in some way?
That'd be a question for Wes.
I think it would be fun as a stage musical for sure. Yeah. I mean, I'm not working on that right now, but I can totally see it as a stage production.
Well, as long as I get tickets to opening night, I'll be very happy, because I think it will be. We want links, by the way, to both of those that will attach to this Q&A so that people can watch some of the earlier versions and see where life took them. So, Sera, what's in the cards for you? What do you got coming, Sera? Anything in the pipeline now? I know everything's quiet.
Great
with COVID.
question. You know, nothing specific right now, but I am really excited for things to reopen and for productions to start ramping up again, because it has been a super slow year that's culminated in something really exciting, obviously, with the premiere at South by Southwest. And I'm very hopeful that it's just going to be the start of a lot of exciting things for everyone involved.
I have to tell you, Sera, we get a lot of, you know, our festival has a lot of prominence. So we have a lot of filmmakers that watch our Q&As and everything. And I have a feeling that a couple of them will be making calls to you, because you're quite a young actor. And I think you're going to do very well in your career. And I can't wait till we have all of you come down to Miami when we do a physical event, because there's nothing like our physical festival on opening night. How about you, Tyler? What's going on in your life?
Oh, you know, I wish I could say there was more, but just sticking with school and work right now. And and I couldn't have said it better than Sera. Just waiting for everything to open back up, and just excited to see what's new.
And by the way, don't feel bad, because for the last year, I asked that question, and we haven't had an actor, I don't care how busy, or they are all the same. Like, oh, we're just kind of waiting for things to open up. We're waiting for things in the film industry have really been difficult, and it's just now getting underway. And only those with a lot of budget that could afford to take all the protocols necessary are really shooting, and that's not a lot in comparison. Mischa, anything else you're producing, looking at?
You know, it's been such a wonderful journey with Wes. I feel like we are still, you know, and I want to thank you again for screening Potato Dreams of America at your film festival.
Opening night,
which is amazing. We're so happy to be there, and are excited to sort of shepherd it through as we get to share it with the world. So that's kind of my primary focus right now. But always developing stuff. I have a short film that Wes produced with me, and so we'll be, you know, putting that out in the next year in little projects. But yeah, it's definitely been an unusual year.
Well, OUTshine at Home starts right after this festival. It's our brand new streaming service, and I hope we have your film in it. And Wes, plans? Are you working on something new? You know, it's hard to work on something kind of autobiographical and then come up with something, or maybe we're going to find out more about your life. But what do you think is kind of next for you?
Well, I have a friend who wrote a series of really beautiful, really poignant memoirs that are even more surprising and have more twists than Potato Dreams of America. So I'm looking to adapt that into my next feature film. I'm really excited about that.
Well, I want to tell you, we're so honored to have your film for our opening night drive-in, and of course virtual for one day. And I think the audience is going to love it. It's got a little bit of everything in it. You know, I want to go back real quickly before I wrap this up. There's a scene in there where the kids are all on stage and they're all yelling kite, kite, Jew, Jew, and I'm a Jew, so I mean I guess I can say those things without getting too much hate mail. And those of you that are going to send hate mail, I don't read them anyway, so go ahead and send them. But take us through that scene real quick. And I don't remember, and you'll forgive me, the kid next to him that Potato says, hey, you don't have to follow everybody. Was he Jewish, or was there something else? Because I don't remember that particular piece.
I'm trying to imply that he's Jewish because Hirsch has a line he's starting to say, I know your father is, but he doesn't get to finish it because his friend interrupts him.
Right.
But that was inspired by a true moment in my life. That was kind of a turning point in my own life where this actually happened in a classroom, in a history classroom. And I was just so appalled. And I'm not Jewish, but I just thought this is so horrifying. And I came home that day and I told my mom, I don't want to live here. I want to move somewhere else.
Well,
anyway.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I just said anywhere else. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I am Jewish. My grandfather and grandmother came from Russia. My grandfather was a very good, strong guy. He was a shoemaker. And I just tell this story real quick, and he worked for the general of the army and making his boots. And the general's wife was in love with my grandfather. And she'd come out and always try to coerce him to go. And we all know that it would have been a bullet in his head. And that is why he had to leave Russia to escape this woman. Otherwise, who knows where we'd be? Maybe I'd have a Russian general for a grandfather. Who knows? Or a grandmother. Who knows? Anyway, thank you all. I wish all of you a lot of luck in your career. You can watch the trailer right after this. We'll see you all opening night, and thank you again for giving us your film.
Thank you so much.
Best of luck to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.